This is FE Peer Review. The date is October the 3rd, 2023. Sir Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, and Kyle Adams. I've had a bit of a rough week and needed a laugh. Fortunately, Arctic Reflections provided one with his response to a recent video by Kyle Adams. I'm including a bit from Arctic's video and linking to it. I encourage you to go watch it. However, I also encourage you not to watch Kyle's own video. His channel was removed by YouTube and he is now trying to start up a new channel. We don't need to be supporting him in his efforts by giving him comments and views. Here's the relevant bit from Arctic's video that I'm responding to.
So, whenever gas goes into a vacuum chamber, that gas expands, right?
Okay.
It goes everywhere. Okay. How are stars formed?
You talk to a physicist. I'm a mechanical engineer.
Let's listen to that one once more.
You talk to a physicist. I'm a mechanical engineer.
At this point, it's quite clear that this man told Kyle, this is not my area of expertise. I haven't studied it. I don't work with it.
That's okay. That's okay. So, NASA claims that stars are formed by gas clumping together in the vacuum of space, right?
Okay.
So, if that's a test question and you don't agree with the answer, okay, and you're kind of forced to write the answer, do you feel like it's being forced to lie, to say something you don't agree with or believe in, but you're just kind of writing it anyway to get credit?
No, I would research it, find out if it's true.
Okay, and so your research continually shows that gas doesn't clump together in a vacuum, and you find out that this is true and they're wrong. So, if you answer the way the test question wants you to, then you're saying something you don't believe in.
Kyle says, and so you find out that this is true and they are wrong. I repeat, they are wrong. Something Kyle seems to be missing here. It's clear from the way Kyle speaks that he believes he is right, and all the world's experts on star formation are wrong. But it's not enough that Kyle should think that he has refuted some essential scientific principle, such as how stars form. He has to demonstrate that he is right to the satisfaction of the community of experts in the field, typically through the peer review process and experimentation and prediction. And he has to identify the errors in the previously accepted theory to the same degree of persuasiveness. And aside to Kyle, if you're watching this, if you do not thoroughly understand everything posted in the previous images, can explain it all in technical detail, and show that it is all wrong, you have not disproven the current physics and understanding of star formation. Even Einstein had to do this. Building on the work of others like Henri Poincaré's 1905 proposal of gravitational waves, Einstein developed his hypothesis of general relativity. Over a decade, he refined and tested his hypothesis, working together with such great minds as Marcel Grossmann, Karl Schwarzschild, Alexander Friedmann, and Georges Lemaitre. In 1915, he was able to show that his hypothesis was superior to Newtonian gravity in being able to account for phenomena such as the anomalous perihelion advance of Mercury. Finally, in 1919, Sir Arthur Eddington confirmed general relativity's prediction for the deflection of starlight by the sun during the total eclipse of May 29, 1919. Over a decade after the start of his work on the problem, and with the involvement of many other great physicists, general relativity was deemed a valid theory, more accurate than Isaac Newton's approach to gravity. My area of expertise is structural engineering, in particular design of concrete structures. If Kyle took the first level class, we'll call it Concrete Structures 1, and learned the basics of how a reinforced concrete beam works in bending, and if he were to then take the exam, I would expect him to be able to accurately restate the material taught in the class and thereby pass the exam. That is the purpose of the class and the exam. If he had some disagreement about the fundamental physics behind that process and objected to that, he would need to prove to the satisfaction of expert physicists that they were wrong about the fundamental physics principles at work before I would be prepared to rewrite the course materials. He would need to take his place in the pantheon of great scientists alongside Newton and Einstein in his revolutionizing of basic physics principles first. Why in this order? Because the design of a concrete beam emerges from the basic physical principles at work in that particular problem. If the basic physical principles are wrong, then yes, the design is wrong too. But the correction needs to be made to the physics. The engineering will get fixed after that. Now, for example, if Kyle accepted the basic physics but disagreed with some engineering principle, that would be an issue to bring up in the concrete design class, the engineering sphere. For example, steel reinforcing bars in concrete are understood to achieve both a mechanical and a chemical bond with cement in a concrete mix. This is important in the transferring of forces between the concrete and the steel. Perhaps for some reason Kyle thinks that's wrong. Maybe he thinks chemical bonds don't happen. If he were to make that argument in my class on test day and answer the test question based on his objection rather than the course material, I would still mark his question as wrong. If he were to tell me that he objected to the chemical bond notion, I would tell him that this is something he needs to bring up in the concrete mixed design class rather than in the beam design class. This may sound like nitpicking, but concrete mixed design is an entire area of expertise of its own. And though I studied it, it is not the subject of a class in the design of beams. For Kyle to support his claims against chemical bonding, he would need to do extensive tests and analyses of physical specimens, microscopic analysis of the structures inside beams. He would need to explain how the apparent signs of chemical bonding are not actually chemical bonding, and so forth. His work would need to be peer-reviewed and published. He would need to conduct all this research to such a degree of persuasiveness that the textbooks and building codes are rewritten and the field of concrete mixed design had been altered worldwide. So my message to Kyle remains what it has always been, even when he had his old channel. Kyle, you're not a teacher. You're not even a student. You're certainly not a good student. You need to become a good student before you can become a teacher. You think you've proven something? You haven't. You think you object to gas in space? Good for you. You haven't proven a damn thing to anyone. You show the world you are right, show the world you're right, and the world will acknowledge you're right because it cannot be refuted. Unfortunately,
Okay, and so your research continually shows that gas doesn't clump together in a vacuum, and you find out that this is true and they're wrong. So if you, okay, and so your research continually shows that gas doesn't clump together in a vacuum, and you find out that this is true and they're wrong. So if you, that this is true and they're wrong. So if you, that this is true and they're wrong. So if you,
unfortunately, you insist on showing the world that you are wrong, again and again. I've decided to add an addendum to this because my original message is probably too subtle for Kyle to grasp, and I need to be more explicit. First, it's not about how Kyle is wrong with the physics. This was addressed well enough by another commenter on his video. The problem, very simply, is hubris. Kyle is unqualified to be a teacher, too unintelligent to be a good student, and lacks the humility to be even a poor but sincere student.